You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience.
Okay, so next topic is the privatization of Fannie and Freddie Mac. So for many people that are not really familiar with how the mortgage industry works, so taking it going back a little bit in history. So after the Great Depression, one of the big issues in order to trying to get people to boost the economy, get the economy going again, is the availability of funds for banks to lend out to businesses, to individuals, so people can buy cars, buy houses, reinvest it in their business. And so what was happening is, if you were a bank and you lent, for example, $50,000 to an individual, well, then that individual owes you $50,000, but you as a bank then lost $50,000. You had no more capital at this point, and you were limited on what you could do. And so Fannie and Freddie Mac came into play because they became government-sponsored buyers of mortgages on the secondary market. So what the bank would then do is sell that actual loan to Fannie and Freddie Mac. Then Fannie and Freddie pays the bank. The bank then has new capital that they can then reinvest, and the entire circle economy keeps moving on.
In fact, let me just chime in really quick. And at that same time, the 1920s, what we take for granted today, which is the 30-year mortgage or even the 15-year mortgage, was something that just didn't exist in the 1920s. In fact, when you borrowed money, you had 5 years to pay it back or 10 years to pay it back. So if you do the simple math and you use that as your amortization timetable, you're going to have large monthly payments that the average person can't afford. And so as the government steps in and goes, hey, I've got a novel idea. Why don't you have an 80% loan to value, and instead of having people put 50% down, have them put 20% down? The bank's like, what, are you crazy? Because no, I will insure it. In fact, I'm going to create a secondary money market where after you've made that loan and taken that money from your from the savings that people put into your bank and loaned it out, we're going to replenish that supply, and then we're going to even insure it. And this was the beginnings of mortgage insurance. And then, so, because if the bank said, well, because the big question the bank had was, what if they don't pay it back? The government said, hey, I'm insuring it. I'm the government. I'll take care of you. And this is where veterans loans came into place, or FHA, these Federal Housing Administration. So it kept money circulating.
And it's a great system. It's a great system that's worked for many years. However, Fannie and Freddie ran into a very big problem 10 years ago during the financial crash. And when that financial crash happened and there were so many foreclosures, they could not insure. There was too many losses. And on top of it, mismanagement at the time, because Fannie and Freddie had strict requirements on the type of loans they were buying from banks. And pressure came down from the government to be more flexible on the types of loans that they were buying. And so they started to invest and buy subprime mortgages and buy them in large bulks. And when the market crashed, you saw exactly what happened with the number of foreclosures and the full market collapse. So with that happening, the Fannie and Freddie were basically insolvent. They could not insure, they could not continue running their business. And so the government had to come in and basically, through receivership, took them over, and the government now runs them. And to this day, even though all the problems have been fixed, to this day, the government still runs Fannie and Freddie. And the big debate is, well, at what point are we going to take Fannie and Freddie out of receivership and back into the private market? And my opinion is they're not going to do anything with it, because the reality is it's now become a cash cow for the Treasury. They're not going to let that go. There's no motivation by the government, the Treasury, to even let Fannie and Freddie go back into the private market. So this has been a discussion that's been coming up for a couple of years, and nothing's happening.
Right. And and the thing is that government traditionally is very inefficient about running business. So that's been the big question, is they're pointing out all these deficiencies. But then, of course, when private business comes in, it makes it a little too efficient and cuts corners. Sometimes people get a little bit footloose, and then bad things happen.
Yeah, and it really comes down to being a cash cow. I mean, that's really what it is. They're not going to let that go.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
Yeah. Okay. So, we literally cut that one just in time.
We did.